If you're wondering how, real long-term wealth gets built in Canada, the kind that sticks around for decades, chances are real estate comes to mind. So today we're doing a deep dive into the data, specifically the historical track record. We really want to know, is Canadian home ownership actually the engine for financial security people say it is? Especially when, let's be honest, the market right now feels, well, pretty wild.
That's exactly the mission. We need to unpack that history, look at the real growth numbers, say, over the last 30 years, and importantly, break down the fundamental difference between owning, building that equity, versus paying rent.
We're drawing a lot from a major RE/MAX report here, one that focused specifically on these long-term market drivers.
And the thing that just jumps out immediately from this research is, well, it's a really bold claim. It says that real estate has, historically speaking, been one of the most stable and rewarding ways to build wealth in Canada. Over time, anyway. We're looking at decades of performance that, despite recessions, high rates, all that stuff, have generally set homeowners up pretty well. It's a powerful story, for sure, and the historical data seems to back it up.
Okay, so let's unpack that history then. We're looking back to 1994. And the sources show Canadian homeowners have built up, well, really significant equity and wealth since then. What people maybe forget today is that every single group of buyers since 94 has faced big challenges. Recessions, crazy high interest rates sometimes, policy shifts.
Hurdles.
Yeah, hurdles. The path was never, perfectly smooth, but that massive appreciation still happened.
That's the resilience piece, right? And if you actually drill down into the numbers, the scale of the growth it's pretty fascinating. That RE/MAX report, the housing market drivers one, it pulls together the data. It shows home values in major Canadian cities climbed, get this, by as much as 460% since 1994.
Wow, 460%. Okay, that's a huge number. But I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because if I'm thinking about buying today, that number is also, frankly, terrifying. I mean, given that kind of history, how do the sources tackle the argument that, look, it's just too expensive now, that kind of wealth building can't happen again?
That's a really fair point. And yeah, the report does acknowledge the barrier to entry is high now, no question. But the historical data suggests the mechanism for wealth creation is still there if you're playing the long game. Look at the specifics of that 30-year growth you mentioned. Halifax saw the highest growth, 460%. Which shows it wasn't just, say, Toronto or Vancouver.
Okay, so not just the usual suspects.
Exactly. The greater Toronto area, the GTA, was next, values up about 436%. But even somewhere like Saskatoon saw appreciation close to 378% over that same period.
So it's pretty consistent across different markets, not just a couple of hotspots.
Yeah.
So for you listening, this kind of reinforces that idea. Homeownership, historically at least, has beaten inflation and helped middle-class Canadians build real, tangible net worth.
Precisely. It's not just numbers on a stock statement, it's an asset you live in. But to really get how these huge numbers happen, we need to talk about the mechanics, which brings us to that classic dilemma, owning versus renting.
Yeah, and for anyone trying to make that call right now, the financial difference is, well, it's fundamental, it's huge.
It really is. We often talk about forced savings with ownership, right? And that's powerful, both psychologically and financially. Every mortgage payment you make gets split. Some goes to interest, sure, but the rest pays down the actual loan amount, the principal, that principal reduction. That's basically saving money without really trying. It cuts your debt and directly increases your equity, your stake in the home. Your net worth grows.
Okay, and we have to talk about leverage here. That 460% growth number you mentioned. That wasn't growth on just the cash someone put down, was it? It's growth on borrowed money.
Ah, yes. Leverage is the secret sauce, really. Let's say you buy a $500,000 place with 10% down. That's $50,000 of your own money. If that home goes up by just 5% in a year, that's $25,000. But on your $50,000 investment, that's a 50% return. Just because you use borrowed money, renting just doesn't give you that kind of multiplier.
Right, that's the key difference. But, okay, playing devil's advocate here. Owning is complicated and expensive too, right?
Yeah.
We talked about paying down principal, but there are huge interest payments, especially early on. Plus, property taxes keep going up, maintenance, insurance. Doesn't that eat away at the gains?
Oh, absolutely it does. Those carrying costs are real, and they're costs renters typically avoid. That's undeniable. However, looking at that long-term track record again, the appreciation, supercharged by leverage, has historically tended to outpace those costs. Especially if you hold on to the property for, say, 10 years or more. And if you compare that to renting, well, yeah, you skip the down payment and property tax bills.
Yeah.
But you face the opportunity cost.
The opportunity cost.
Yeah.
That red money, it's just gone. Zero chance of getting it back or having it grow, no matter what the property value does. It's paying for someone else's asset, basically.
And that really adds up over decades. Plus, a huge advantage of owning is flexibility down the road. You can tap into that equity you've built up. Use a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, for big things, maybe renovations, helping with retirement, funding another investment. That ability to use the asset's value, renters just don't have that option.
That flexibility really turns a house from just being shelter into a powerful financial tool. Okay, let's talk market resilience. We keep saying the market bounces back, but what specific tough times did the report mention that really tested that idea?
Well, historically, the Canadian market's been pretty tough. It's weathered some major storms. Think back to the early 90s stagnation, really high interest rates. And then, of course, the big shock of the 2008 global financial crisis. What the sources show is, yeah, short-term speculators got hurt, but long-term homeowners, the ones who just held on through the cycle, they generally saw prices recover and keep growing once things stabilized. The market's knack for absorbing these hits, it really supports the argument for it being reliable for long-term financial security.
And that resilience, when you connect it to the bigger picture, that's exactly why real estate is such a key part of intergenerational wealth transfer. That rising property value means a home bought today, even if it feels painfully expensive, can become a really significant asset for the next generation down the line.
Absolutely. The main home itself can often be passed down quite tax efficiently, through wills or trusts, or sometimes the equity is used while the original owner is still around. A common thing is using home equity, maybe through a secured line of credit, to gift a down payment to kids or grandkids. It helps them get onto that equity ladder much sooner than they could otherwise.
So it's not just about handing over the keys eventually. It's about using the asset's power while you're still living there.
Exactly. And then there's the passive income angle, too. Families might invest in rental properties, maybe a duplex or a small multifamily unit. This can create a steady cash flow, the rent coming in minus the mortgage and expenses. That cash flow can cover the property's cost, maybe reinvest it, or, importantly, you could use it to help your kids or grandkids become financially independent. It becomes a multi-generational strategy.
Yeah, building a foundation, really. Turning today's mortgage grind into tomorrow's legacy.
It's about engineering some financial stability across time.
Okay, let's pivot back to right now, because for a lot of people listening, thinking about buying anything today, even a small condo feels almost impossible with current prices and interest rates. How do the sources advise people on setting themselves up for the future, starting now?
Well, the main strategic advice is, it sounds simple, but it's hard to do. Think long term. See homeownership as a gradual path, not an overnight thing. The data is pretty clear that trying to perfectly time the market, it matters way less than just time in the market. Historically, people who wait on the sidelines for the perfect moment often miss out on years of appreciation that can happen after a dip. The real goal is just to get onto that equity building train.
Get on the train. I like that.
Yep.
Even if it's a small carriage to start. The report also mentioned buyers today are having to get really creative, right? Like maybe giving up the dream of a detached house is the first step.
Oh, definitely. And the advice really encourages that creativity. The aim is just to secure some kind of owned real estate, any kind. So yeah, that often means starting smaller, buying a condo, maybe a townhome. That's a critical first step for many. Those properties still generally move with the broader market. They still give you that leverage we talked about.
What about other ways in? Rent to own comes up sometimes. Why might someone look at that now?
Rent to own can be a smart strategy if you're struggling to save that full down payment or maybe need some time to boost your credit score. You essentially lock in today's purchase price, which is huge if prices keep rising. Then you have a set period where part of your rent goes towards your future down payment. You're kind of earning your way into ownership without watching prices potentially run away from you for the next few years. We're also seeing more people looking at modular homes or even tiny homes as more affordable entry points, especially outside the biggest cities.
So really, any step towards owning, no matter how you get there, is a step towards potentially benefiting from those long-term equity gains we've discussed. The basic wealth-building idea is the same, whether it's a huge house or a small condo.
Precisely. It's the fundamental difference between making payments that just vanish versus making payments that slowly, steadily build your net worth.
This has been a really helpful deep dive into the sort of financial logic behind Canadian home ownership. So to wrap up the key takeaways for you listening, real estate offers that tangible, leveraged asset. It's historically proven pretty resilient and has generally outpaced inflation. And maybe the most powerful part, it sets up that forced savings mechanism that can compound and grow over decades.
Ray. Which brings us to a final thought, maybe something provocative for you to chew on. We've talked a lot about how the big wealth driver in real estate is often the smart use of borrowed money leverage. So, given that, and knowing you can potentially tap into that equity later for retirement or other investments, how should you think about managing your mortgage debt? Is the best strategy always just to pay it down as fast as humanly possible?
Yeah.
Or is there maybe a long-term advantage in managing that debt more strategically, keeping some leverage working for you, potentially freeing up capital for other things? It's really a core question about how you want to run your personal